We decided to do our presentation on the rights for the LGBTQ community, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community. There are those who approve of this community and those who do not. Of those who do not approve, the denial of certain rights they believe is absolutely necessary and just. However, not all people think this way. This presentation is intended to analyze the discrimination that surrounds the LGBTQ community. Throughout this presentation, a thorough explanation of the relevant history, facts, as well as the two sides of the issue will be provided. It is important to recognize this community's history, that it did not just begin recently. Rights for this community date way back to 1924, when the first documented gay rights organization is founded by Henry Gerber. This organization is called the Society for Human Rights. In 1969, protests and demonstrations began after police raided the Stonewall Inn in New York City. This is a driving force for the gay civil rights movement in the United States. Also at this time, the American Psychiatric Association removes homosexuality from its list of mental disorders. In 1975, the first federal gay rights bill was introduced to address discrimination based on sexual orientation. This federal bill was never brought up for consideration after it was introduced. Also in 1975, Technical Sergeant Leonard P. Matlovich reveals his sexual orientation to his commanding officer and is forcibly discharged. However, this was again looked at a couple years later, and the sergeant received money after his forcibly discharged event occurred. In 1979, the first National March on Washington for lesbian and gay rights takes place, and this draws an estimated 75,000 to 125,000 individuals to march. So this drew a lot of attention in the media especially. In 1993, the president at the time was Bill Clinton, and he comes up with the policy known as Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which prohibits the harassment of closeted homosexuals or people who haven't come out as gay yet. In 1996, the president signs the Defense of Marriage Act, which bans federal recognition of same-sex marriage, which sparked a lot of anger for many people because they thought they were advancing, but then this bill was passed and made them think otherwise. In 2000, Vermont becomes the first state to legalize civil unions between same-sex couples. And in 2004, the first same-sex marriage in U.S. takes place. In 2008, voters approved Proposition 8 in California, making same-sex marriage illegal. However, this is found unconstitutional 2 years later in 2010. And moving up to 2017 now, the Seventh Circuit of Court of Appeals rules that the Civil Rights Act prohibits workplace discrimination against LGBTQ employees. Also, this year, the President Donald Trump announces that the U.S. government will not accept and allow transgenders to serve in the military. And also, Danica Rome is elected as the first openly transgender candidate to the Virginia House of Delegates, creating history. And also, she is a Bonaventure graduate, which makes history for St. Bonaventure as well. In analyzing this community, the history that we looked at is important in seeing the events that are taking place today and how the history is impacting the advancement for this community's rights.
Alright, so after looking at the history of LGBTQ rights in America specifically, we're moving on to the different perspectives that people have and based on this history and also the controversy that exists within, along with our opinions towards the end, because we want to discuss it based off of our view with these facts and information. So, going into the first perspective that somebody can have towards LGBTQ rights, which is being for it. So, with this philosophy, usually what people consider is all people matter and all people deserve basic civil rights as human beings, and our freedoms shouldn't be limited to certain sexual orientations or genders. Doing this actually is discriminatory because it's making a subhuman label, not allowing this group of people to have basic rights like marrying the person they love is not okay because it's denying them civil rights as human beings. And usually the reason why people don't agree with this is because in a traditional marriage, it's a man and a woman, not a man and a man or a woman and a woman, or even a trans person. Obviously, this is changing with the laws that have been passed several years ago for marriage equality in all 50 states. So now gay people can be married, but there's still a lot of discrimination and there's still a lot of bias towards people who partake in this. So this perspective is basically just, humans should be able to marry whoever they want, have whatever gender they want, sexual orientation. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't affect their rights as human beings. So in contrast, perspective 2 is against LGBTQ rights. So with this perspective, the philosophy usually goes towards religion and cultural belief. So usually in Christianity, for example, a man and a woman get married and they have kids and that's it. If you do it any other way, like a man and a man adopt a kid, or a woman and a woman have a kid, or a surrogate or something, that's not okay and it's against God's will. So that obviously says people who have this view typically either they're just hating for fun or they actually believe that it is not okay and they don't agree with it. With this comes a lot of baggage. So hate crimes and violence are a huge part of this perspective because people aren't happy with the laws that are being passed and the way things are changing. They want to stick to tradition, and when people go outside of that, they get angry and they want to hurt the community because they don't want them to persist with these new modern ideals, per se. The amount of hate crimes and violence towards just sexual orientation alone is in the top 3 for hate crimes. So that means right under race and religion, sexual orientation is one of the top 3 reasons for hate crimes and violence in America. So when we're going into the controversy of this issue, honestly, to reiterate what I just said, it's basically just one side agrees that it's, human rights are important and people should be able to express themselves however they want to, sexually and through love and marriage. And then the other side is saying, no, because that's not the traditional way, that's not God's will, I don't agree with that because of my own cultural or religious background. Obviously, there's still growing laws and rights for this community, and it's great. Most people actually are for LGBTQ rights, but there is still discrimination out there, which is why this is still an issue. And the discrimination that takes place has a lot to do with the law of religious right. So in class, we talked about the case with the couple who wanted a cake, and they came in, and the baker said, no, I can't serve you, it's my religious right, I don't agree with you two being gay. Basically, that's the gist of what happened. So that's a great example of this because it goes right into the controversy that exists between the religious right and the LGBTQ rights. The religious right has been in the Declaration of Independence since, it was established. So that's, that was there the whole time. But the question is, it's kind of tricky to constitute what is a religious right in terms of what is an LGBTQ right, just because you could say, I don't support you because it's my religious right, but at the same time, you're discriminating against a group of people. So that's why there's this huge controversy, because people have different opinions on it, and they don't agree with the laws that are being put out. So the interference between religious right and LGBTQ rights is just a huge controversy based off background, beliefs, and rights for human beings. To sum this all up, our opinion is we believe human rights comes first. Personally, we think people should have the right to their own sexual, romantic, gender preference, and we've come to this consensus based on our own personal and logical reasoning. But we just so happen to agree, which is great. We just think that you should be able to live whatever kind of life you want to live, whether you're gay or not. It shouldn't matter your sexual preference, who you love, because everybody deserves to have that, and even if it's different from tradition, it's still human. It's still a natural thing because it exists within nature. So it should be accepted, it should be embraced. And we think that equality is the most important over everything. Everybody having their own civil rights just because they're humans. These are our sources, and thank you for watching.